My name's Susanna. I'm a marketing coordinator at Nelson Engage. So I'm just going to kickstart tonight's session, and then I'll pass on to Robert so he can take you through how New Century Maths is approaching the Stage 5 syllabus. Just to start with an acknowledgement of country. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Engage Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Then just for a little bit of housekeeping, so this webinar is being recorded and will be emailed out next week to everyone who's registered. Please put any comments and keep talking to each other in the chat. If you do have any questions for the presenters, please pop them in the Q&A. There's some designated question time at the end, and they'll be able to answer your questions then. The New Century Maths student book that you selected will be sent out once it's published. And if you do have any kind of post-event questions, just email us at os.secondary@engage.com. So now I'm going to pass on to Robert, and he's going to take you through tonight's session.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. And I have Sarah Hamper with me as well. And thanks for joining us, whether for the first time or you're coming back for some more, information about the new syllabus and how to program for it. If you have missed our previous webinars, you can watch them back. We do have a YouTube channel for Nelson Secondary, and our past webinars this year have been unpacking the new Maths 7 to 10 syllabus and also how New Century Maths is programming for the new syllabus. And we also have been providing scope and sequences and tables of contents with the syllabus codes. They're available. Email us if you haven't got yours yet, and teaching programs are coming soon for years 7 and 9. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on Stage 5. So we're going to look at years 9 and 10, because that's the one with the new path and core versus path structure. So we're going to show you how we've structured our year 9 and 10 books. Okay, so just a bit of a recap. So the new Stage 5, the core and path structure replaces the Stage 5 continuum. So it encourages multiple pathways in maths learning. So in the past, we sort of started to fall into the trap of thinking of 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 as being distinct groups rather than it being a continuum, which is what it was. So in the new structure, core is all the essential content that all students should learn. So core now makes up to the middle of Stage 5, and it's basically foundation for Maths Standard 2 in Stage 6. And then the optional paths, they make up the balance of the course. So basically, schools choose which paths to teach according to whatever number of pathways you decide to have at your school. So path selections allow for tailored learning programs and also aspiration for students. So when NESA introduced this new syllabus, they wanted us to, I guess, raise the bar and try to get students to learn as much maths and as high a level as possible. So when we're programming, we're supposed to have an aspirational view of Stage 5 maths. Okay, so here's an example of a topic area and how it's being progressed. So we've got the topic area is called Pythagoras and trigonometry. And in Stage 4, it's just Pythagoras' theorem. And you can see here that there's a code. These are the syllabus outcome codes. So MA4 means Math Stage 4. PYT is the 3-letter code for Pythagoras. And C stands for core. And then 01 is just the number of the syllabus outcome. And then, so in Stage 4, students will just cover Pythagoras' theorem. In Stage 5, when they start trigonometry. So I guess actually the content hasn't changed for trigonometry. It's still the same content. It's just the way we are the way it's being structured in the new syllabus. So core core number 1, I guess, is just applying the trig ratios to solve right-angled triangle problems. Then core 02 is applying trigonometry to solve problems, including bearings and angles of elevation and depression. And then the first path section is applying Pythagoras and trig to 3D problems, and also the sine, cosine, and area rules, including bearings. And then finally, path 02 is establishing and applying the properties of trig functions and finding solutions to trig equations. And that's the kind of stuff that you'll be teaching students who are going on to Maths Advanced in the HSC. So that's why they've actually, NESA have conveniently labelled this path as being useful or recommended for advanced, whereas this one here with the sine, cosine, and area rules is a path that's recommended for standard and advanced. So the I guess the strategy here is for schools to select enough path topics as appropriate. So Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think the main thing there is, you can still split that into year 9. So you might do those first 2 on the right with stage 5, as you would, I think, normally. And then the second 2, when you get to the non-right angle triangle elements there, those last 2, probably program those into year 10. So it's not that you have to teach it all in, I'm doing trig and we must go all the way through in one go. We can still split up over the 2 years. So they refresh their memory probably of year 9 and then move into year 10.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And even in the old syllabus, it was structured like that, so that you would you could cover one part of the topic in year 9, and then the harder parts of the topic in year 10. Okay. All right. So we're publishing new editions of New Century Maths. So we're publishing 6 books again, like we did before. So we've got advanced books for years 9 and 10. So year 7 will be out in November for next year. Year 8 will be out in January next year, which means you could, if schools that are teaching year 8 next year, you could use this book. Year 9 and year 9 advanced will be in December, again for next year. Most schools are not teaching year 10 next year, but the following year. So that book will be out in October 2024. Now, I know there's a bit of panic, I guess, that with this new syllabus, but don't forget it's only 10 to 15% change in content, and it's really for stage 5. It's really just networks. It's just where everything's ended up, like things have been moved around and renamed, but the content really hasn't changed. And when I go through the chapters with you, when we both go through the chapters with you, you'll see that all the familiar things are still there. So schools should choose path topics that are most appropriate for their students. So a learning pathway could have no paths or all paths, but they're the 2 extremes. I probably wouldn't do that. It's most likely to be your schools, a pathway will have some paths. Okay, so here's our 2 year 9 books, and year 10 will be this, follow the same structure. And in fact, if you've used our books before, we used to call the one on the left the stage 5.1, 5.2 book, but now it's just called the, I guess, the core and standard paths book. So it's for students, it's got all the core, and also all the paths that are suitable for students who will be going on to standard maths. So these are the students who struggle with maths, who haven't completed stage 4 at the beginning of year 9. So they need to do a lot of, they still need to revise a lot of stage 4. And then the one on the right is what used to be the 5.3 book, but now it's called the advanced book. And it's got the complete course, so all the core and all the paths. So these are for students who are going to go on to doing Maths Advanced or above, an extension. Now, I know there are some schools and teachers who are worried about making these decisions at the beginning of year 9, and I understand that. So if you are really concerned that students will be missing out, you can just give all the students the advanced book on the right. Okay, I know they're like the schools, it depends on your school and your school needs. I know there'll be some schools that will be using the one on the left and then prescribing the advanced book for say the top 2 classes, but there might be some schools that prescribe the advanced book for all their classes except for, and then the 2 struggling classes might get the core and standard paths itself. I'll show you in a minute. It doesn't really matter because students aren't missing out if they use the book on the left, because there will still be access to some of the harder topics and some of the harder pathways that will take you on to Maths Advanced. So if you start with the book on the left, you won't be missing out. There is still opportunities for you to, if a student becomes better at maths at the end of year 9 or the middle of year 10, they can start the pathway to go to Maths Advanced. Yeah, Sarah, anything to add to that?
No, that was pretty comprehensive.
Pretty good. Okay, thank you. Okay, so also the big thing is that all our table of contents have the syllabus codes listed in the margin, so that you know that which syllabus outcome is being covered in each section. This is us making ourselves accountable. You can be reassured that we are providing full coverage of the syllabus, and we're telling you explicitly what's there. So this is chapter 1 from the year 9 advanced book. It's the algebra topic. It's called products and factors. And you can see that we cover all the core for this topic, but we also start like from week 1, or no, from topic 1, we're already going into the paths work as well. So it's not like we're going to teach all the core first and then the paths, because the core topics and the path topics, they work hand in hand. So it's important that those students that are on the advanced path do learn how to do factorizing binomial products or difference of 2 squares and perfect squares, things like that. Okay, some advice about programming. This is an old joke. You might, that you could use in class. I don't know. How do you make a statue of an elephant? Well, get the biggest block of granite you can find and chip away everything that doesn't look like an elephant. Okay, now this is the principle that we use when we're programming our books. How do you make a stage 5 pathway? You get the syllabus and chip away all the paths that don't look like the pathway. So you could call this the bonsai or the sculptor's approach. So you just chip away all the stuff. Well, you need to have a vision of what you want to teach the class, and then you just chip away. It's like bonsai cutting, and it's like sculpting. You just get rid of the things that you don't want, and then hopefully at the end you'll have a masterpiece or a work of art. So this is our advice to how to program. First of all, determine the number of pathways you will have at your school. Okay, typically it is 3, and there's no, there's a reason behind that. And it's probably, and then you could have more than 3. It's also possible to start an advanced pathway in year 8 for early access to stage 5. Then identify where the students in each pathway are, where they're at, and where they should aspire to. And then you develop the course for each pathway by carefully removing or chipping away the path topics that are unsuitable or impractical. And then you keep the pathways flexible so that students can change between them. And this is actually what we did when we were designing our standard books. And then, so you can use our standard books and you can use our advanced books, and then then it's over to you to chip away further. Like you can decide what to keep in and what to delete, I guess, get rid of. Okay, now in this edition, we have a new marketing byline, and it's called Written by Teachers for New South Wales Teachers. Sarah, why have we decided to describe New Century Maths this way?
Well, all the authors have taught in New South Wales schools, and we're familiar with the curriculum requirements, particularly as you work through from stage 4 to stage 5 to stage 6, which I think is really important, because then we're definitely catering for our students in our curriculum, requirements with NESA. So then we have everything aligned in the correct way, basically. So we're very familiar with the syllabus.
Yep, that's true. And actually, we're now the only series left, because that is like that, because Signpost Maths and Inside Maths are no longer being published. So we're the only original New South Wales series that's written by New South Wales authors and teachers. And we're not an adaptation of a Victorian or national series. If you do look at our competitors, they are big author teams. Like we've only got author teams of like 3 or 4, and we work and we sort of share the workload. But when you look at our competitors and you look at their author teams, you'll notice that there's a lot of them, and which means that each of them is only writing 1 or 2 chapters. So there might not be continuity between the chapters, but more importantly, if there are no New South Wales authors on their teams, then there's no guarantee that you're covering the entire syllabus. So some things to look out for is, yes, does it embrace the Australian, the New South Wales syllabus, or is it the Australian curriculum? Now, you might not think that there is much difference between the Australian curriculum and the New South Wales syllabus, but there's actually significantly more, significant difference. I think in New South Wales, we cover all of the Australian curriculum, but we also add in some of our own dot points or content areas. So for example, the significant figures and changing the subject of a formula and general equation of a line, they are not covered in other states. So they're not covered in Victoria. So you need to check when you're using those books whether this content is being covered.
And Robert, if I
yep,
can just add, they're not the only ones. We will point out as we go through, but that does just say some examples. So there are others as well.
Yeah, and also like if you're an author who's not from New South Wales and you've never taught significant figures, I can't see how you can write a chapter and exercises on significant figures, because even New South Wales teachers often have difficulty explaining significant figures. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Also keep in mind whether the authors are known in New South Wales. Have they taught in New South Wales? You can Google them and you will be able to see that. Do they have 2 levels of text for stage 5 to provide differentiation and flexible pathways? And is there syllabus support, such as precise teaching programs, syllabus grids, scope and sequence, answers to queries? Now, obviously, I'm asking these questions because we provide all those things. We'll give you like we always take on teacher feedback, and we'll make changes or we'll give you advice and make changes. So we do listen to you and we do get back to you pretty quickly. So I don't normally talk about competitors, but we've started to see a pattern with schools coming to us and saying, oh, we used a competitor text and we got burnt, basically. I mean, so here's a situation that came up this year, where a school had been using a cheaper adapted Australian curriculum text for the past 2 years due to decisions made from higher up. So it means something like the curriculum coordinator or the teacher librarian ordered the maths books, and we found the product to be incomplete or something that could not be used that could only be used in conjunction with another book. So we have chosen New Century Maths as we feel that with the online offering, it's a complete product that we can use exclusively. Okay, yeah. Anything to add, Sarah, or is that pretty straightforward?
That's pretty straightforward, I think.
Okay, and then also some more comments or feedback we got from schools and teachers, like textbook X doesn't suit the way I teach. It explains some things in a funny way. I feel more comfortable teaching with New Century. And I think it explains some things in a funny way is because it's in a Victorian way. And you might not think there's much difference between New South Wales maths and Victorian maths, but there actually there is. And but I won't go into that because it'll take up too much time. And also textbook X is too hard and too wordy. There's too much going on. The questions are boring, and there needs to be questions to show the applications and relevance of maths. Okay, so let's get into the, I'm going to show you all the topics that we cover. I'm going to go through years 9 and 10 quite explicitly so that you can see how we differentiate. So year 7 and 8 there is not really, all right, year 7, virtually no change. Those chapter names are the same as what they were in the last edition. New Century Maths 8, you'll notice congruent figures has been crossed out because it's no longer stage 4, and it's actually no longer core. It's actually a stage 5 path topic for students who want to go into Maths Extension 1. So it's actually quite a high level path topic, so it shouldn't be in there at all. We've crossed out time from chapter 10 because time is now stage 3 topic. So we've left it in year 7 for revision, but we've taken it out of year 8. And with that gap, we've added a new extension chapter 12, and we're calling it similar figures and surface area, because that is a stage 5 core topic. And so it is, and remember how I said some students can start stage 5 in year 8. So we have included stage 5 work in a lot of the year 8 chapters. And then chapter 12 is a dedicated stage 5 core chapter. Okay. Then year 9, we've got the 2 pathways, haven't we? So we've got 13 topics, 13 chapters. So on the left-hand side, geometry is now called geometry and networks because we've got the new networks topic. And then congruent and similar figures is now just similar figures because, as I said before, congruent figures is now a path topic. So it doesn't really belong in this pathway, but it does. You'll notice it does belong, it is in this pathway, in the advanced extension pathway. Algebra becomes products and factors. Pythagoras' theorem becomes surds and Pythagoras' theorem. So you can see we are starting students on that trajectory of doing harder maths straight away from the start of year 9 for those students who are capable. And then there are other subtle differences in each of these chapters as well. Okay, so year 10, okay, it gets a bit more, even more complicated. So along the standard path, we've got chapters 1 to 10. We've got networks here again, which is new. Simultaneous equations has been crossed out because it's not core, and it's not really going to be useful for students on this pathway. Inequalities has been crossed out because it's not core. However, with simultaneous equations, if you can't look down here, we have put it at the bottom of at the back of the book as an option chapter. And we've also got products and factors, surds, the quadratic equation and the parabola, because you know how some students, they suddenly become really good at maths at year 10 but they were too immature in year 9. And if they're ready to do Maths Advanced, then they can catch up at the end of year 10 or whatever. And they have access to these 4 bonus option chapters for Maths Advanced. And then on the right-hand side with the advanced pathway, instead of algebra, we've got products, factors, and surds here. Instead of equations, we've got equations, inequalities, and logarithms. And what else have we got? We've got quadratic equations and the parabola there. And then at the end, we've also got option chapters for students going on to Maths Extension 1. So we've got functions, polynomials, and circle geometry. So this pathway covers the entire course, so all the paths. Okay, now I hope you're not going to find this next bit too tedious and boring, but I am actually going to go through every chapter in year 9 with you and show you how we differentiate. Okay, so the first the first chapter in year 9 is called Algebra, or Products and Factors. So we've got all the syllabus codes here, and then in the standard pathway, it starts here and it ends here. In the advanced pathway, it starts here because these first two are assumed knowledge. So we won't be revising that again, but it goes all the way through to these red parts. So anything that's red is a path topic. So it does go through all the perfect squares, are basically what we're currently teaching in year 9, stage 5.3 anyway. So it's nothing really different. And then I've also put here for the standard pathway, it's a year 10 option topic. So students aren't missing out. They can always come back to it at the end of year 10. And I've also added a third column here for year 8. In our year 8 books now, we've also added these 3 things. So students who are excelling or accelerating in year 8 have also got access to these 3 bits. Okay, Pythagoras' theorem, same kind of thing. So Pythagoras' theorem is just this topic here for year 9 standard. For year 9 advanced, we also introduce surds, simplifying surds, adding and subtracting surds, and multiplying and dividing surds. And then year 8, there is also a section on simplifying surds. Okay, anything to add, Sarah?
No.
Okay. Well, actually, Sarah, would you like to talk about this? Because this is like the front of the surds and Pythagoras' theorem chapter.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So, we always like to link the spirit of the syllabuses, particularly moving through all the stages and getting to stage 6 now is that, practical application. So I think the nice chapter beginning there with some practical information and a bit of history. And then we've got the chapter outline on the right-hand side with the word bank. So we've got keywords that are listed. I think they're in a glossary at the front of the book, and on the left you've got all those working mathematically parts. So very at the bottom it's got an explanation there. So U is your understanding, then you've got fluency, and so if that applies like in 2.01, if there's understanding, fluency, there's problem solving, but it doesn't appear till 202, and then you've got reasoning, so the codes are at the bottom there, and communicating. So it's telling you for each concept which parts of the working mathematically elements are included in the exercises. So going back to what the syllabus is requiring us to include again. Okay. On the right-hand side, next to the word bank, sorry, I'll just point out as well, there's a quiz, there's a word bank there, so you can click on those and it takes you to another section as well.
Oh, okay, yep. So yeah, we've got a new digital platform called Nelson MindTap. So when you click on there, you go to an online quiz that's based on these word bank words. Okay. Oh, and this is the same chapter outline in the advanced book. So we've color coded all the stuff that's paths as well. Okay, numeracy and calculation. This is mostly stage 4 topic. So just revising number and then applying them to finance and ratios and rates. So you can see that the year 9 has got full coverage, but the advanced book has these recurring decimals section, including that thing in New South Wales that we converting recurring decimals to fractions that we do. So that's a path topic, and then it go straight to the application. So it doesn't do the revision part. And then Robert, trigonometry.
There was just a question on the previous, someone's put in the chat, the Q&A about that previous slide, that the word bank, does the word bank, do those definitions come from the NESA syllabus glossary?
Okay, no, they come from, okay, so they're the author's definitions. So it's how it's explained in the book, what each of those things are. So it's not the NESA glossary, it's our definitions.
So there could be additional words that help students as well there. It's not a limitation.
Oh, yeah, so it's more than just, oh yeah, so it's beyond the it's more words than the NESA glossary. So we've always had a glossary in our books. So it just covers all the important terminology that's in a chapter. So regardless of whether it's in the syllabus or not. Yeah, I think from it's longer than the NESA one. Okay, so remember trigonometry we were looking at before. And so with the year 9 standard, it goes from here to here. So it stops at finding an unknown angle. And we leave the angles of elevation, depression, and bearings for year 10. Whereas the advanced students will go right to the end of bearings. And also with bearings, don't forget in New South Wales, we're reintroducing these compass bearings that are like that angle, that bearing there is south 30 degrees west. So so just make sure that when we're teaching this next year, that we also cover these compass bearings, which is an acute angle from north or south towards east or west. Okay, so when you go into the textbook as well, you will get to see these things. Sarah?
Yes, so this is probably one of my favorite things. I really like that now when you open the book, you can see at the beginning of the chapter, the summary of all the things probably that you had looked on NelsonNet for each chapter to find before. And there's a lot more now. So there's the videos. It's telling you what exercise down the side that they link to, and they vary per chapter, of course. This is what it is for trigonometry. We've got twig videos. So that's demonstrating a lot of applications. So that could be helpful for students to see how things apply in real life. You've got the quizzes, there's worksheets, puzzles. There are also other videos as well. There's technology spreadsheets, all sorts of things, but it's very good for the teacher. If you're short on time, like a lot of us are, we can just check in our summary at the beginning of the chapter and see exactly what resources are available to us, and what we might then go into the MindTap and look for when teaching each of the concepts.
Yeah, and then also on the pages themselves at the relevant places, we've got these icons telling you there are MindTap resources available, whether it be an online quiz or a video. Okay, and then we've got these, I guess, chapter objectives. Now, I know there's the buzzword at the moment is learning intentions and success criteria. So you could base those things on these chapter objectives. I mean, we've always had chapter objectives, and you could translate them into success criteria and learning intentions. Okay, so chapter 5 is on indices. I guess the only two new this is the topic here. In year 8, you can also access these index laws in the year 8 chapter. Year 9 standard is most of the course, most of the topic, and then year 9 advanced do fractional indices as well. Okay, I know there are some teachers who think that you should teach all the core work first before you go onto the path. But if you did that, then you'd be teaching all these index laws, and then you'd be waiting till next year to start teaching fractional indices, whereas as an extra bit, I guess. So I think it's better for some students that they learn about the fractional indices in context in that chapter on indices. Okay, then we've got chapter 6, geometry and networks. So what have we got here? It's quite a mixed bag now and there's quite a lot has changed. So we've still got angle sum of a polygon, and we've still got exterior angle of sum of a polygon, but these two have been moved from stage 4, so they're new to stage 5. Line and rotational symmetry, transformations on the number plane. And then we've got the new topic networks, including planar graphs and Euler's formula. So for year 9 standard, it's a short topic because they don't cover all that geometry. But again, don't worry if they can catch up in year 10. Yeah, and then, but they are covering networks here. Also in the year 8 book, there is coverage of networks and angle sum of a polygon. But then the year 9 advanced book, they get that covers all of this. Now look at all these yellow things here. Like these are all New South Wales only. So I have been looking at some of the table of contents of our competitors, and I can't see transformations on the number plane anywhere, or line and rotational symmetry. So just make sure, I mean, if you're going to use those books, then you're going to have to supplement with exercises on these things, on these geometry things. Okay, actually, I'll just go back. The other one is significant figures. I can't see significant figures featuring in the table of contents of our competitors either. So make sure, yeah, I mean, you have to make them accountable. Okay, so this is a skill check. What is a skill check, Sarah?
Yeah, so it's like prerequisite knowledge that you would hope students had, so just maybe refreshes their memory of some skills that they've maybe done in stage 4 before now they're starting their stage 5 work. So we've got, you know, different types of angles there, complementary, supplementary, angles at a point. We've got some parallel lines, some keywords, complement and supplement, those sorts of things again. So just checking that they have their foundation knowledge sort of thing.
Okay, yep, thanks. Oh, actually, that thing that just flowed up. So we've also provided answers, like we'll obviously provided answers, but we also tell students what page the answers are on, because rather than they having to flick and look it up, you know, we're tempting them, I guess. We're telling them exactly what page it's on.
There are some we don't want to look at that. We just ignore that little bit. Just make sure you do the work.
Okay, so this is what a page looks like, and we've actually on the new topic of networks. So it's pretty colorful, all of this stuff here. I guess all the path work has this special margin. Okay, we've used our text series in the past. This would usually say stage 5.2 or stage 5.3, but now it's just called path. Anything that's red is a glossary term. So we've got very straightforward explanations. We've got worked examples that are very, the authors spend a lot of time trying to present the worked examples in the clearest, shortest way. And then we've got these summary boxes, which feature the formulas, important facts and formulas that you should know. Okay, chapter 7 is equations. So we've got all these types of equations. Now, don't forget, in stage 4, in year 7 and 8, they only do 2-step equations now. So they don't do equations with variables on both sides or equations with brackets. The 3-step equations, they don't start it until year 9, until stage 5. But we know that there are students in year 8 who can do these equations, these 3-step equations. So we have kept it in the year 8 book as extension. So the 9 advanced pathway, they will start with the new 3-step equations straight away. They won't revise 2-step equations, it's assumed knowledge. And they will also do equations with algebraic fractions, these simple quadratic equations, these monic ones, the simple cubic equations, and also changing the subject of a formula. Now, these 3 things are New South Wales only, and our competitors don't cover, well, some of our competitors don't cover changing the subject of a formula. So the year 9 standard path, all right, they cover these things. If they're not missing out with changing the subject of a formula, it will be in the year 10. Okay, earning money or financial maths is an entirely New South Wales topic. So it's a short topic and it's core, so it's financial math, it's core. So it's covered in both books. So those 2 books, the chapters are identical. And then we've got analyzing data. Again, it does have path work, but all of statistics, I mean, did you know that all of the statistics in both the standard and the advanced pathways, they're identical. So students are expected to do all the statistics core and all the statistics path as well, no matter which course they're going to go on to. Okay, so this is your second favorite page, isn't it, Sarah? Because
That's right.
Very colorful.
Yes. Okay, so up the top, it's telling you next to the word overtime, the elements from working mathematically. So there are 4 of the 5 there, just communicating's missing. So it's just in the abbreviations, acronyms. Then I like this because, you know, there's us as the time poor teachers. We need to be able to distinguish for the different students in our classes, the grading. So you can see green squares, and it's listed down the bottom of the pages as well. Green squares is foundation work, and then blue circles is standard, so sort of midway. And then we've got the hexagon there, it's the complex questions. So there's a variety of questions. And what I really like about this is we have multiple choice as well as free response questions included for those.
Okay. So there's a multiple choice.
So that doesn't, like question 7 there, it's showing you, you know, you still have to read, you have to be able to analyze. It's not just that they're easy questions, it's that you have to have your literacy skills combined with your numeracy skills and work through which is the answer there. So there is a range of expectation in the question. So that one's a blue, so it's in the middle. And then you've got question 10 there, one of those working backwards, two parts there, to find the hourly rate. So that's classified as a complex question. So you can distinguish quite quickly as a teacher, okay, I've got these students over here, they could be working on, you know, the greens and the blues perhaps, or maybe I've got a few that can only do the green, and then we can work our way to the complex questions. So you can quite easily do that for every single exercise in the book, looking at the grading.
Yeah, notice question 10 is also a problem solving and reasoning question. Yeah, they have to work backwards. So, all right, so some feedback, impressed by the layout and visual support for low achieving students. Also pleased to see questions are now graded. Okay, chapter 10 is surface area and volume. So pretty much identical between the both pathways. There is a path topic called volumes of pyramids and cones that only the advanced students do, but the year 9 standard, it's in year 10. And it's also surface area of a prism and cylinder is also in our year 8 book. What's new is precision, absolute error, and percentage error. And what's New South Wales only is volumes of pyramids and cones. Okay. So we also have these mental skills, because maths isn't just always using a calculator. It's also good to have some number skills and be good at estimating and have a good sense of what, you know, if you're using a calculator all the time, then how do you check whether your answer is correct? Like, how do you do need to do some sort of reality check, I guess. And if you don't have good number skills, then you won't be able to check them. Okay, now we're on to coordinate geometry and graphs. This is chapter 11. Okay, so what's new is applying linear equations and applying quadratic equations. And then what's path work is direct variation, graphing quadratic equations, and graphing circles. But so it's actually not new. It's what we currently teach. So this is how it's covered in the standard advanced pathway and also in year 8. It's also covered in year 8. Okay. Do you want to talk about technology, Sarah?
Sure. So this page here is showing for probability, we try and incorporate things that are relevant to the topics only. We're not just doing technology for the sake of it. So you can actually use a spreadsheet to set up. It tells you the formula there, and you can it can simulate tossing coins, and they can follow the instructions. I often use these with my classes, and it's good to have the instructions there. Sometimes some of them move faster than others, but they can still get the table at the end and then be working towards, you know, it's just a different way of showing this particular one. There are different technology activities, but just different ways we can apply, you know, tossing coin. I know a calculator can do it as well. You don't actually have to have physical coins. So we try and include it only where it's relevant.
Okay, yep, good. And this is the last chapter in the year 9 book. And it's either similar figures, which is a really short topic for the standard pathway. Look, the truth is, I said this to Sarah last week. I think congruent figures is one of the most useless topics that we shouldn't have made year 8 do. And when I was teaching year 8, I would program it to be the last topic because, you know, it's only useful for students who are going to do congruent triangle proofs, I guess. But similar figures, and Nessa agrees, similar figures is more important than congruent figures because you can do stuff with similar figures. You can do scale drawings, you can find unknown sides. So for the standard pathway, it's only these three things. And in fact, in year 8, we've covered these two things as well, because remember a long time ago, it used to be part of stage 4. Yeah, about 10 years ago, it was still part of stage 4. Okay, so, all right, I won't have time to go through year 10, but I'll just flick through these slides quickly to show you the year 10 pathways. So we've got interest and depreciation, which is another New South Wales only financial maths topic. And I will give you a link to this PowerPoint at the end, so you can look at this yourself. Then we've got graphing lines, where we've got the general equation there, which I said look out for because it's New South Wales only, and it's the same thing with the point gradient equation. We've also got that thing, coordinate geometry proofs, that we also, yeah, that's New South Wales only. We've got investigations in every chapter. So this is a sausage sizzle activity involving, like it's linear modeling, basically. We've got surface area and volume. Now those harder surface area and volume questions involving pyramids, cones and spheres, that's New South Wales only. And also this thing, surface areas and volumes of similar solids. Now, some of you might think, oh, this is new to the syllabus, but it's not. It's always been there. It's just that the other textbooks don't cover it, okay? But there's quite a lot of theory behind that. We've got this mega algebra topic called, well, it's algebra for standard, but for the advanced pathway, it's actually called products, factors, and surds. And then, but the standard textbook has it as an option, 2 option topics, which is this slide here. So bonus option chapters. Then we've got comparing data, which again is the same for both. And what's new with bivariate data is looking at association versus causation. And just to let you know that standard deviation is not taught in the other states. So we've got things like did you know? So this is from the bivariate data section, looking at the record for the 100-meter sprint. Then we've got equations, inequalities, and logarithms. Now the standard path is just equations, but we've got all this extra stuff, including all this New South Wales only stuff, and logarithmic scales is new. Okay, so we've got Richter scale, which is an example of a logarithmic scale. Now this is a very, really detailed graphing chapter, which you can study on your own. A lot of New South Wales only content. Okay, so there's full coverage here, and then there's standard coverage here. We've got the trigonometry with the sine and cosine rule stuff. Okay, remember that slide I showed you before? So we've got the harder trigonometry that will lead on to year 11 here. So we've got, at the end of each chapter, we've got this Power Plus exercise for harder work. There's the simultaneous equations there. It's an option topic for the year 10 standard group. We've got a chapter called quadratic equations and the parabola. At the end of the chapter, we've got language of maths, and we've got mind map activity, and we've got probability here. Conditional probability is what advanced students do, but not standard. At the end of a chapter, we've got like a chapter review called Test Yourself. We've got a geometry and networks chapter as well. Again, a lot of stuff here. Okay, we've got the functions, polynomials, and circle geometry. And then we've got that glossary at the back of the book. I might pause for questions. Are there any questions, Sarah, that we can answer? Or
there is one there. Did New Century consider providing learning intentions success criteria for every lesson?
Yeah, I mean, we did consider it, but that would just take up more pages in the book. So our book is really pretty big as it is now. So, so we decided it's easier for the teacher to create them from what we've provided at the front of each chapter. And also like students are going to tick boxes anyway with the success criteria. So it's really pretty much, it should be something that's printed out. But I mean, it's not hard to make, to create them from the chapter objectives anyway.
There's also a question there, Robert, about, the color coding with the questions in the activities. Can we also do that with the teaching resources that we're providing as well? Can we color code those? Yeah,
we did think of that too, but it's harder with worksheets because it depends on, like, when a teacher takes a worksheet, it's very contextual, whether it's easy, medium, or hard. So it's really up to the teacher's discretion. It's not as simple as an exercise question, but I mean, that's a good point. Yeah.
There's one other question there. Do teachers have access to MindTap with the purchase of the class sets? So. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, well, we're on that page now. So Nelson MindTap is our new learning digital platform. But the important thing is it's only available to schools that subscribe to NCM. So you need to either on a book list or class set or book hire, like your classes do need to, your class does need to use this book. So if you can't just buy one book, if you buy one book, you don't get access to all these resources. So yeah, so I think that's the new thing. Like we're working on a subscription model now, I think, yeah, I'll quickly go through what's available on MindTap. So there's like, you get an ebook, you get over 100 videos of worked examples per book. You get over 200 worksheets, skill sheets, puzzle sheets, technology sheets. And then you've got online quizzes of the word bank, prior learning checks, skill checks, mental skills, language of maths, and test yourself. And then you've got Twig videos, which are 5-minute documentaries showing the background and context of maths. And then you've got PhET interactives, which are online simulations for students to experiment with maths concepts. For teachers, you've got the reliable topic tests and teaching programs. We've got work solutions to every question that can be switched on for students, and you can customize the ebook for different groups of students. So you can remove content or hide it. You can reorder it, and you can also add links to your own resources or web or things that you find on the internet. You can assign tasks and assessments, and then the gradebook, which is a mark book, records student progress. So this is what it looks like. So this is like you get the book, I guess, and then you might go to the chapter on Pythagoras' theorem. And if you click on edit materials, you can actually move things. You can move content around, and you can also hide content. So you might want to program. So it's called courseware because you can program the course yourself by moving things around. And then when you go into 103, which is finding the hypotenuse, it sort of goes deeper into levels. So it gives you what's in the textbook, it gives you the videos, it gives you the answers, or the work solutions, the Twig video, and the worksheet. So all the content is where it belongs, in the section that it belongs. And then you've got things like these prior learning checks, where you click the answer, and if you're incorrect, I was expecting them to tell me the correct answer, but it actually gives you a clue. So it asks you to do it again. So we've got these online quizzes. We've got these word bank, drag and drop activities. And every exercise in the textbook also have some questions converted into an online question. It's usually the multiple choice ones because they can be marked. This is called assigning work to students. So you assign work to students. So your students have to register in MindTap, and then you assign work, whether it be reading a section of the chapter or doing an exercise, and you give them a due date, and it gets recorded in this gradebook, either as a mark or whether the student has completed the work. We've got your typical worksheets and skill sheets.
we've got the, the video tutorials made by our own flipped classroom teachers. Okay, and just to remind you that all our flipped classroom teachers are from New South Wales, and all our authors writing the worksheets are also from New South Wales. And this is a screenshot of a twig video looking at the lifespan of that little animal there's called an elephant shrew. And there's a formula, inverse proportion formula, that relates the number of heartbeats to the lifespan. So, and this is what it looks like in the Nelson MindTap. And then we've got these PhET interactives. What are they? Sarah, you've played with these before.
Yeah, so they students can use them. Students can actually interact with them, and they can play with different elements there. So everything's interactive there, and you can sort of simulate to understand a concept by the interaction. So there's a few demonstrated there. They do a huge variety. The PhET people, they're quite amazing. So they're really relevant, and it just gives students another way of visualizing their maths, I think, is the important thing.
Yeah, so students basically play around with things digitally, and they're getting feedback on it, and they're building their skills rather than, I guess, rote learning it. Okay, you can also learn more about teaching with New Century Maths with Nelson MindTap at our New Century Maths Roadshow. So we are now coming to you. It's first time after the pandemic that we're doing workshops again. So Nicole Curry from our sales team and I will be at these places in about 3 weeks' time. So join us for afternoon tea at 4 o'clock, followed by a demonstration of Nelson MindTap at 4:30. So we'll be at North Ryde, Penrith and Bankstown, and regional people don't be annoyed, but because we're also planning to visit you in August and September. And now Sophia Burton from our sales team is going to join us and give you some information about pricing and availability.
Hi there, everybody. I'll be very quick. We have the books with the Nelson MindTap available at $72.95, and then the courseware, including the ebook, for $39.95. Year 7, Year 9 and 9 Advanced available in Term 4. And then Year 8 will be available at the start of Term 1. And then Year 10 available around the start of Term 3. And the prices are there. And the next slide, I would urge you just to talk about pricing and to talk about the options with Nelson MindTap, just to reach out to your sales consultant, and we can talk you through everything, and we can also give you a demonstration on the platform. So yes, please reach out. Thanks, Robert.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so we've reached the end of our webinar, but I'm sure you have many questions. Sarah, are there any more questions?
There is some, if you want me to read those out. There was also some that I caught in the chat that came through.
Okay.
So first there was a question regarding simultaneous equations that is in the standard syllabus but not in the standard path book. Is it not in the book because they only solve graphically?
Correct.
Is a question that came through.
Correct, that's right.
Perfect. There's lots of codes. I'm going to try and say these as clearly as I can. Please bear with me. There's a question that says, are GOP01 and NIDP01 different pathways, or is everything with a P01 part of one pathway? I hope that makes sense. It's the first question in the Q&A, if that helps. Lots of syllabus codes.
Oh, okay. 01 just means it's the first syllabus outcome, so it's not a pathway. So P stands for pathway, and 01 means it's the first one to do with geometry. and that, or the first one to do with indices, which is what IND stands for. So the 1, 2, 3, or whatever, it doesn't, it's only the order. It doesn't actually, like, it doesn't affect your programming at all. But look, as you work with these more, as you study the syllabus, and please study our PowerPoint, because you can now download it from that tiny URL a web address there. And we're also providing like the video to this. You'll get access to it next week. Yeah, have a look at it. Study the way it's done, and you'll notice that 0, 1 just means the first outcome to do with networks or indices or trigonometry. So it's just for numbering. And somebody asked whether developmental maths is being, we're doing new editions of it. Not yet. We haven't had time to. There's just so much going on. It's quite, but in terms of, but I think you can probably still use developmental maths for the new syllabus. The only thing it won't have is the network stuff. So you'd have to supplement it with that. Yeah, access to the programs and scope, and like the teaching programs are on MindTap. So you will need to go onto MindTap to download them. Yeah.
Robert, there's a question there, with the simultaneous equations, because of the elimination and substitution methods, we've got the extra chapter in the standard pathway. Could this likely be reintroduced in standard in stage 6 with the new syllabuses that we are thinking are coming in the future?
Okay, this is just my opinion. The answer is no, I don't think so, because they did introduce it in the last change when it was Maths General 2. They introduced syllabus, algebraic, and no, they introduced those algebraic methods, and it wasn't very popular. It wasn't also in the spirit of the Maths Standard syllabus. So they took it out, and it's just graphical methods now. So the general maths, when the general maths syllabus first came out in the year 2000, it's always been graphical methods rather than algebraic methods, because the general maths and the maths standard courses are meant to be not so much algebra. It's meant to be more applications of algebra. So I think it's unlikely that it will be in the new math standard course, because if it was, they would have made it core. The fact that it's not core, I think, indicates that it's not going to be in the math standard course. But that's just my opinion. Things can change, and I really can't predict what syllabus writers do. They do some very strange things. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
It does just say there about, I know we've talked about this before, but people might have missed it. Will NelsonNet keep existing when MindTap comes in as well?
It'll keep existing for a while, but we don't have a NelsonNet for these new books. So you do have to use MindTap for these new books. So if you're subscribing to our old books, I guess when your subscription runs out, or I think when we phase that out, then NelsonNet will also be phased out. Yeah. Also, Mitchell, by the way, Mitchell Scott, I took your advice and I've put changing the subject of a formula in the standard book. So I hope you're happy about that.
There is one other question that came through earlier from John that said, will there be automated topic tests that send results to the teacher on Nelson MindTap?
No, it's not that sophisticated. So we do have, no, we haven't got completely automated topic tests. We have quizzes that auto mark and record the marks in the mark book or grade book, as it's called in MindTap, but we still have the PDF style, the printed style topic tests for students to do. I just I don't think we're at the stage, I mean, in publishing, but also I know we're moving on to, like NESA's moving on to online exams, but I think when the HSC becomes an online exam, then we'll start seeing online exams being provided for publishers. But I don't think the technology is ready yet. I mean, the mathematical symbolism is what gets it, and can't type maths into an online exam. And it's just too fiddly, but it's also too time consuming, and you're just wasting time, and the computer can't mark it. But I'm pretty confident that in 10 years' time we'll have character recognition. The technology will be available where you write it. I mean, the technology is probably there now, but it hasn't been developed for education yet, where you just write the answer, it converts it into mathematical symbolism, and then it marks it. But we're not at that stage technologically yet. I mean, we're in 2023 now, and we still don't have those flying cars that we thought we would have when we were kids.
Hope everyone has a great evening. So we will finish up now. Please reach out to us at os.secondary.com.au if you need anything further. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.